Welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on another glorious week in the state of Texas. We're in the middle of early voting. That started on Monday here in the state of Texas. There's 2 weeks of early voting with main election day on Tuesday, November 5th. A lot to talk about, a little bit to unpack. I had an interesting trip out to West Texas in Odessa. Probably try to have some time towards the end to discuss that. If you want to know what happened on that issue earlier in the week, check our Facebook accounts, social media, Instagram, X. And if you get our email, click that email if you didn't see that update we sent out yesterday. But, this is what we do. We get on the road sometimes, go to the different parts of the state of Texas to show up, to be a voice for the issues you care about on faith, family, and freedom. And that's what we talk about. If you're new to this show, we talk about the issues of faith, family, and freedom in the arenas of the courts, the legislature, and the media. This podcast and radio show has been running for over 6 years, and you might be watching on Facebook right now. If you are, click that share button, the like button, get it into some groups. Let's get more people a part of the conversation today, because there is a lot to talk about. I'll try to not talk about football since my Longhorns didn't have quite the weekend that I expected, but there's plenty to talk about in our main topics that relate to faith and family, even though my daughter is excited about her homecoming football game on Friday night. That's going on in our family. Maybe you as well, okay, for those people that's a part of their life in the high school arena. But so much to talk about on the issues of the election, and really the importance that we have as fellow Christians in the elections. And, Texas, there's a variety of different races, a lot of focus on the presidential. There's a big U.S. Senate race here in the state of Texas, but all the way down the ballot, there's a lot of things, all the way to your city council or maybe your school board election. And so many reasons for Christians to be reminded how important it is for us to be a part of this process and engage during this time and show up and vote. Talk about the issues. Maybe you want to post on social media, whatever your level of activity is, but at a minimum, to be aware and to be acutely aware, to be very aware that you have a significant role. And this is what's taught in the Bible. And sometimes we can hear things in the culture and through other people that tell us otherwise or discourage us. And so we got a great guest today that's going to talk about that. And he's also going to be a part and be our keynote speaker for our gala on November 2nd, which I'll have a lot to talk about. But David A.R. White is one of the most well-known actors in the Christian film arena. He's also been on the production side, been a part of Pure Flix and now Pinnacle Peak movie production. And so, but many people know him as his ongoing role as Pastor David Hill in the God's Not Dead series. The most recent installment of that came out just a month and a half ago. God's Not Dead, In God We Trust is the full name of that movie. It was in theaters for several weeks, and I think now is available on some streaming platforms. And in a week or so, I think it opens up even more. But David's originally from Kansas. His father was a pastor growing up, and as a teenager, he made his way out to Los Angeles and then quickly got into the movie industry and production side and has done a number of different things and is also using his role in the movies to talk about the importance of election and the role that Christians have on these different issues, and that's a big topic of that film. And like I said, he's going to be our keynote speaker at our November 2nd gala in Dallas. So we're looking forward to that. David, welcome to the Texas Values Report.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, as a matter of fact, the last time I saw you, I guess this is the first time we actually really met in person, was in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Technically was in Southlake when you guys had a red carpet event. Texas Values was a co-sponsor of that event. We were excited to be a part of that and get to meet you in person and hear a little bit of dialogue about the movie. The God's Not Dead series, though, grossed over $100 million in its life. I think this was the fifth installment of, if you will. So, I mean, I have to believe this is one of the most, successful, if you will, Christian movies and series of its kind, certainly in recent history. And you're coming off just the latest one. And I mean, you couldn't have picked a better time, right, for the movie all to come together and get released.
Yeah, we were fortunate. I mean, we never said, people are always like, well, why do you guys do another movie? And, what's the purpose of doing another God's Not Dead movie? And we never exactly know what we're going into. We try to pray about it and try to let the Lord lead whatever, if we're even supposed to do another one, and here we are in our fifth installment, God's Not Dead, In God We Trust, which is backdropped, with an election. It's really about, at the core, it's about, I play Reverend Dave, and And I have had a lot of issues over the last, 3 movies and for many, many years. And the last thing he wants to do is to step out again out of his comfort zone. And I think the movie is set up where God calls him to actually enter the political arena where he does not want to go.
Well, and a lot of people don't. I mean, I've never run for office myself. I've been in this law, policy, sort of political space for close to 2 decades. And so I interned for an elected official at one point. I never actually worked for the government in a paid role. And so I try to be understanding of what it's like because I see them close up and sometimes from afar, elected officials, whether they're in campaign season or they're in the middle of a legislative session, which is what we focus a lot on at Texas Values at our state capitol. But that's, it's quite the journey to go through. And so it's interesting to see towards the beginning of the movie, God's Not Dead and God We Trust, which came out at the beginning of September, late August, excuse me, Reverend Hill your character going through sort of those emotions, and it's got to play out very quickly in an hour-and-a-half movie, but still, I experienced some of that. I've worked with some candidates and people who've kind of gone through that process. One of our board members, his wife ran for Texas House of Representatives this year, and it's not always easy, but so there was some authenticity, if you will, and I'm sure y'all got a lot of great people that gave you insight on that, but I thought it came, through very believable in what you often see, but you quickly move from that decision. And I mean, look, this was talked about, I believe, in the movie, or at least in your commentary, how many, religious leaders or pastors are actually in elective office. And there are more than maybe people think, but I don't think it's quite common. But what a great opportunity to see that play out in a movie, and something that we do see sometimes and are currently the case here in our U.S. Congress.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I didn't realize the stat. There's now more pastors or reverends in Congress now than ever before in history, which is crazy. To think about that, because you wouldn't normally think about that. But that's one of the questions that the movie really takes a look at: is where in the world do Christians and politics, align and or interface? And so. It's based on this crazy stat that if we don't do something, so often we don't want to get involved in politics. It's a dirty business, right? That's how we kind of think about it in our brains. And so a lot of Christians have taken, they've fallen back to just go, yeah, I don't want to be involved in that. That's a messy business. And there's a stat that talks about 40 million American Christians don't vote in presidential elections in the past, which is crazy. 15 million out of them aren't even registered to vote. And so this movie really takes a look at that, about why that is. And God's calling us not only this isn't just about, there's a whole lot of different thoughts about this election, but from a movie standpoint, from the story and from the faith aspect of where does God sometimes call us out of our places of comfort to go do something that we normally would not want to do, and get involved in something that we don't want to be involved in. And I think God's calling Christians, certainly during this presidential elections, to step up, because if you don't vote, somebody will vote for you. And that outcome may not be what you want it to be, which, so you've been given your God-given right to go use your voice. And that's really the heart of this movie.
Yeah, it's a strong message, and you're right. I mean, the timing of it, we were part of the red carpet event, got to talk with some of the producers and writers and a lot of people sort of behind the scenes in the movie, and how the timing came together, which was not planned, right? It just sort of happened that way, and, fair to say, God's timing, God, was in control. And so, but that's how it turned out. The movie lands right before one of the most important and talked about elections, presidential elections, of quite some time. And it's not, I meant to look this up. I should probably know this right off the top of my head, but I don't think it's very common, if we've ever seen, at least certainly in the past 100 years or so, someone who was a president, Trump, who was president before, then ran for re-election, didn't win, and then comes back, 4 years later to run again. So there's some unique things that relate to this dynamic we're in and historically, but that's happening right now. And, you had some help in the movie on people who've been in presidential politics. Governor Mike Huckabee, who ran for president at one point, has a small role, but an important role in the movie. I think we've got a clip from that, too, if we're going to cue that up and show that real quick.
Nice.
And it's exciting now because I think people are realizing that there is a hunger for the spiritual content. And if you can make films
I actually think this is a clip of me actually on Huckabee, not in the
purpose that he
movie.
has for their lives, then
Right, you're right. I'm sorry. This is from his show.
Anymore.
You're right. Ashley, is that the one we have queued up when he was actually on Mike Huckabee's show in real life, for real? I think that's the one we have. Go ahead and play that, though. That's fine. Good catch.
Well, I can only tell by the wardrobe.
That's right.
Otherwise, I wouldn't.
No, that's fine. Ashley, let's play that clip, though. You're fine.
And it's exciting now because I think people are realizing that there is a hunger for the spiritual content. And if you can make films that uplift and inspire the human spirit, that ultimately connects people to a higher level to who God is and the purpose that he has for their lives, then that's something that we're not getting in Hollywood normally.
Well, I love that you caught that because, I mean, Mike Huckabee has a show, and then in the movie you're on his show or some, former version of it. So we'll try to find the clip. We'll play the one later from the movie. But that's the relevance of this time, right? And the real discussion overall is about Christianity in politics, the role, it brings it a little bit more into focus because in the movie there's a pastor running for office, but could it be anybody of Christian? And you've got your former nemesis, if you will, the actor who played the lawyer in a few, installments from before that was for the ACLU, that was, talking about separation of church and state.
Kane.
Yeah.
We have
got Superman in there again.
Yeah, the cast is great in there. From you got Dean Cain, and then you have Ray Wise coming back. I think you were talking about Ray Wise there. From the God's Not Dead franchise has really turned into a God's Not Dead universe almost. Like you have like you get all these superhero universes where they keep popping up in all the different movies, and you're like, what movie am I watching, right? Because we've done a few of these now, we're able to bring back certain characters from previous movies. Like Dean Cain's character was horrible in the first movie, and he comes back in this one. Or Ray Wise was horrible in the second one, and he comes back in this one. And then we get new people like Scott Baio, and
Well, and Ray Wise plays the other candidate that you're running against in this current installment, God's Not Dead and God We Trust. We encourage people to check it out. It's now available for live streaming, and it's going to open up even more in another week and a half for even more live streaming formats. But he's good at that role. It just, he really captures, Ray does, his character, what we would sort of all think. And I've dealt with some people from the ACLU and some folks like that at times.
I thought you were going to say I've dealt with Ray.
No, I haven't. But who I enjoyed meeting was Isaiah Washington. I'd not met him before. He talked to me about being from Houston. He's got a Texas connection, and
Did he wear the Texas hat when he met you?
At the red carpet he had the cowboy. I was like, look at this guy. He had his belt buckle on.
I know, he's totally committed to Texas.
He was very authentic. So the movie, though,
Isaiah needs to run for office. Sorry, he's throwing that out there. I've never even told him that. He's like suited for office.
I'd love to see him come back to Houston, and maybe he could become mayor. That is still my home city, so I care a lot about it, and things aren't always going the way I want. The movie touches on a couple of issues, doesn't, drag them on, or it's not something that's focused on a ton, but there's a scene with the political consultant in the movie who has some history with the political consultant on the other side, the candidate you're running against, and there's sort of, the suggestion, if not very detailed encounter or reflection on her part about a child they conceived together and the issue of abortion, if you will, and life comes up. So that's touched on. The phrase separation of church and state comes up in the movie. These are things that are being talked about right now in our current culture in this election. I'm curious if you're getting any feedback related to the movie and Christians saying, I'm more motivated, or it's reminded me. What impact do you feel like the movie's had currently in society in turnout, or just Christians being more aware of their importance of voting this time around?
I mean, that's the hope, is that they walk away with being, I think first and foremost, that they walk away with being encouraged in their faith. They're not alone. So often I think people of faith, Christians, they feel that Christian Catholics, they feel like they're alone sometimes in their faith and in their battle against whatever it is that they're fighting at that moment, and I think what these movies do is when you go into a theater, you let down your guard a whole lot more than you would on, out in public or whatever, or with people. But there's a community aspect to these movies. And when they're in the theater, you get all of a sudden it unites the people in the theater. And it's an interesting thing that comes out of it, because all of a sudden you get standing ovations, you get things that you would see in concerts. But normally you never, I don't know how many standing ovations are coming from the Fast and the Furiouses, or, the latest Avenger movie, or any movie for that matter.
Well, it helps that Newsboys have a role in the movie, right?
The Newsboys are great. Exactly. They kind of give a concert at the end. So maybe that helps.
Well, and, look, I mean, they've been a part in one way. And am I correct? They wrote the song God's Not Dead, and the movies came after that. Is that right?
Well, so this is how it went down. Is in
the beginning, if you will.
No, totally. I mean, they were writing "God's Not Dead" in God We Trust. They were writing "God's in God We Trust." Yeah. That song. Yeah. I was on doing pickups for the movie, and we were planning on naming it. We were still a couple titles away, but the main title that was in the front runner was "In God We Trust." And I'm literally I called Tate on the phone to say, hey, I'm so glad you guys are coming back to be in the movie. And I'm in South Carolina, and I'm looking at a license plate on the phone with Tate that says, In God We Trust. And I said, you're never going to believe this. We actually want to make the movie our title, In God We Trust. And he goes, whoa, I just literally wrote a song called In God We Trust. And I believed that this was supposed to be the title for your movie. So anyway, it all kind of came together, which is the same way the first movie came together as well. There was a book, there was an apologetic book by Rice Brooks. There was the song "God's Not Dead," and then we brought the movie, and it all kind of came together.
Well, look, and there's a lot of discussion about these days. I'm sort of glancing over in our studio. A book from Eric Metaxas a few years ago, Is Atheism Dead? Sort of a sarcastic flip on this, where he discusses these things. And, look, I mean, we have people.
Can you imagine the movies that come out? Is Atheism Dead?
Hey,
what kind of song are they going to sing about that?
I know. Look, you got this production company now, that you're very involved in.
We're not making that movie. I'm not going to make that movie, Jonathan.
I can get you in touch with Eric, by the way. No, but this is a discussion one way or another, right? That's out there. I mean, I don't know exactly all the context of the clip. There's a clip going on, I think it was last week or early this week, at a Kamala Harris rally where someone says Jesus is Lord, and she says you're at the wrong rally. We've got a state law that says "In God We Trust" can be signs that put up in our schools as sort of I don't want to say pushback, a response to people saying, hey, we're not sure this should be allowed. So the topic of the movie, the titles of the movie, these are all things, whether we like it or not, that are playing out. And Christians, instead of turning a blind eye and saying, oh, that's not really happening, it is happening, right? And a lot of those decisions are going to be decided, or they're going to be heavily influenced by who's in office. Right, and I think that's what Reverend Hill grasps a lot in the movie, understanding that the scene about the I think it's the women's shelter that is having trouble getting the government funding, and thinking sort of grappling with, well, maybe I should run for office. Right, there can be an impact that people in elective office can have for our Christian values and for our Christian heritage and the existence of God. We saw a lot of churches get closed during COVID, and some less, like in states of Texas, where there's a little bit more respect. And so, but look, we're a week and a half. You're going to be at our event. Let's talk about the event for a second. November 2nd, and I just want you to know, you and I met 3 or 4 weeks ago or so at the red carpet, and I really enjoyed it. We've been playing some of that interaction that you and I had, but I've been telling my team for years, man, I'd love for an opportunity to have David A.R. White keynote one of our events. And so when things came together this year, I was like, this is the year. Okay, it all comes together, to your point with the phone call you had with Michael Tate. So we're looking forward to you keynoting our event. on November 2nd in Dallas. We still have tickets available if people want to be a part of that event. We do have.
But they're going fast, Jonathan.
I know
Those tickets are going
they're
fast.
going
So people
fast.
need to call in
That's right.
or get on the app today.
Exactly. Let's fill the room. But I just also, this is November 2nd, 2 or 3 days before the election, which is a great opportunity for you to continue that message that we see in the movie, and with just a couple of days left, where a lot of people are still have not voted at that point. So I'm looking forward to bringing that all together for you.
Yeah, it's an honor to be there. I'm looking forward to it as well, and sharing, more about from the movie to about Christian and politics, and where are we supposed to be in it, and ultimately just about hope and dreams and purpose.
Yeah.
And I think so often we forget our purpose in our lives with everything that hits us. And at the core, the Lord doesn't want us to forget that. So I'm excited to be there as well.
Well, no, absolutely. We are too. And, we try to create these opportunities too for God to show up, right? For him to be there and do what he does. So often in our events, people get inspired, people that we're not aware of, they show up, incredible things happen. I mentioned this, I think when I saw you, but, I have a history with the God's Not Dead series, if you will. I was a law student at the University of Houston. I had to sue my university for the free speech rights and religious rights of the pro-life group I was leading. And Alliance Defending Freedom was the lawyers for me. We ended up winning that case, but in the credits of the first God's Not Dead, they referenced that case I was involved in as maybe a little part of the inspiration for some of the script.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm a big fan of all that. That was 20-something years ago, but it's still relevant today, because these conflicts are still playing out in a lot of ways. And the fact that y'all bring it on the big screen helps it come to life and helps people understand how all this fits together, but the important role we have. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again, having you at the VIP reception so other people can meet you and hear an incredible message and new friends that you're going to make when we see you in Dallas on November 2nd.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And likewise, and I promise, I'll be a little sharper, dressed. I mean, you look incredible the way you are with your your red tie and everything. And here I am in my sloppy shirt.
Well, I am going to have.
I just rolled out of bed. What do you want from me?
No, I am going to have a koozie for you though that says "Don't California my Texas values," but don't take that the wrong way though, okay? Because we know there are some good people in California.
The idea of koozies, even the name koozie. I just thought you were going to say, "I will have a jacuzzi for you." I was like, okay, right. I can go with that.
No, we're going to make it special for you, and we know you're going to do the same. So David A.R. White is going to be our keynote speaker at the Texas Values Gala November 2nd, and he's been our guest today on the Texas Values Report. Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys. See ya. Bye.
Okay, I just have like 30 seconds or so left because we had a great conversation. As he exits the Zoom room or whatever we're calling it, txvalues.org, get your tickets. Pastor Rafael Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz's father is going to do the opening prayer. Debbie Georgiadis is going to be our MC. Senator Angela Paxson is going to be there. Chloe Cole. Okay, this is a young lady who went through a gender transition or sort of did as a young age, and now she left that lifestyle and is proudly the woman God made her. She's going to make a special appearance, and there's a award we're giving out, the Kelly Shackelford Award, and the recipient is someone who's been involved in the Save Women's Sports issue. You don't want to miss it. A lot to offer. txvalues.org. We still have a few tickets left. Love to have you there. It's going to be an incredible event in Big D, in Big Dallas on November 2nd. Odessa, we went there on Tuesday night, and there was an ordinance to protect the restrooms, showers, and locker rooms from having men go into the women's and boys go into the girls. Had a tremendous victory, 5-2. We testified, brought legal expertise and insight and support, and that city council got it done. So thank you, Odessa. More details on that on our website. Many of the reasons you should consider donating to our nonprofit organization, Texas Values. We're a 501c3 organization. Go to txvalues.org, make your donation now. And that's how together we can protect faith, family, and freedom. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.